Hello, and welcome to the Special Needs Sibling Podcast, where we talk about what life is really like as a sibling to someone with special needs. I'm your host, Charlene, and today our guest is Susan. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess we'll hop into it. Can you lay out your family structure for us? You, your siblings, who has a disability, any fun facts you would like to share about them?
Sure. So I am one of four. I'm the youngest, actually, of four, and I'm the only girl. I have three older brothers that are 10, 8, and 7 years older than me. And the Georgie is the one that has the disability. He is the oldest out of all four of us. So he's the big brother, if you will.
You have a lot of big brothers, yeah.
I do. I do have a lot of big brothers. That was fun growing up, let me tell
Yeah.
you. But Georgie was always, like, the best big brother growing up. Like, I remember when we were really little, like, he would play dolls with me. He would do tea party with me. Like,
Aw.
he would, like, go do stuff with me, and I had a neighbor who we shared the driveway, and
Okay.
she was about a year or 2 younger than me, so we would play Barbies together, and Georgie would help me, like, carry all my Barbies in my Barbie dream house
Aw.
outside and, babysit a lot or just, like, watch or, I remember one Christmas I got, like, some wooden table and tea set, and he would sit and play tea party with me, and,
Yeah.
from the stories that Georgie has told me, and my mom used to tell me before she
Mhm.
passed away, is that, they were very excited to have a little sister. Well, 2 of the 3 were excited to
Okay.
have a little
Yeah.
sister. One wanted a brother and the other 2 wanted
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and, I think with the age difference, it just made it that much more fun for them, because you figure when they by the time I came, they were 10, 9, or 10, 8, and 7 years old, so
Yeah,
they
so
were
they're,
old
like,
enough.
old enough, yeah, to kinda, like, know what's going on, and then but they
Yeah,
can, like they're, like, self-sustaining, but they, like, have you to play with. Yeah, there's kinda like
yeah.
it's a good mix of, like,
Yeah,
like, cognitively.
Georgie will always brag that he was the only one allowed in the hospital when I was born because he was the only one old enough to go into the
Oh,
hospital
I
to
didn't
see
realize
me.
there was, like, a age,
Well, back then
like,
when I was
back
born, in the '70s, we'll
Oh,
just
okay,
say
okay.
'70s, when I was born, yeah, it was, and then, he was the first one of my siblings to hold me when I was born.
Oh, that's so fun. And then what's his disability?
So Georgie has, a genetic disorder called neurofibromatosis, and he has NF, which is the short name for it, NF
Mhm.
type 1. He also has, hydrocephalus and Dandy Walker syndrome, which is, basically his cerebellum did not develop normally before he was born.
Okay.
So that, causes some things in there, and then in 2015, he had a massive stroke. So, on top of the disability, the cognitive disability that was already there,
Yeah.
he also had a massive stroke on top of it. But for his neurofibromatosis, you can get if you Google it, you'll see pictures of, like, bumps all over a person's body,
Mhm.
and they're all over Georgie's body, but they can also go inside of the body. And
Oh.
unfortunately for Georgie, a few of them are on the inside on his in his brain. So they would continue to grow and cause brain damage as they would grow. And when my mom told me she would go to doctors like all the time trying to find why my brother kept having headaches. And I wasn't born yet. So this is
Oh, okay.
hand down stories
Pre you,
from my
yeah.
parents. Yes, to try to find, like, why was he having headaches, and then they finally found the NF, and they found the tumors in his brain, and they tried multiple different things to try to alleviate the pressure, um, because he would go into a coma, and they've, like, drilled through his scalp, they've gone
Ooh.
into his brain, they've removed parts of his brain,
Oh my
but,
gosh.
the way NF is, it will come back. So,
Okay.
eventually, especially once the FDA approved the use of shunts back then,
Okay.
a shunt was placed in, and I remember my mom telling me that the doctor said, like, "We're not sure if he's gonna survive this surgery. This is a big
Oh my
deal because
gosh. Yeah.
once they go into the tumors and then drain through his body, so it drains the tumors out through his urine, so whenever he goes, it continues to drain the tumors."
Oh, so it's a constant kind of occurrence.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it did the trick, like, he actually survived it. He's about to be next month, he'll be 57, and they didn't think he would live past 10,
That's a
and
long way to come
it's
past 10,
a
yeah.
yeah, very long way to come.
Yeah.
Um, he has had to have another shot added in, over the course of the years,
Yeah.
and, they have found another tumor actually as short as 3 years ago, almost January will be 3 years,
Okay.
that they found another one at the base of his skull, like, in his neck,
Okay.
um, that they found another one, and they were able to go in and remove as much as they could, but as the neurosurgeon explained it to me, it was, like, a very stubborn one,
Mhm.
so they removed as much as they could, um, but it will not stop the, continued decline that's gonna happen
Oh,
from
okay.
the tumors, especially from that
Yeah.
particular one, and it's in such a delicate area that there's really not much that they can do about it. It
Yeah.
is where it is, but, through his life, he has been able to, like, read, write. There were a lot of things he was able to learn, like, prior to all the brain damage.
Okay.
And then some things kinda stopped where he wasn't able to keep going with, like, the higher order stuff, if that
Yes.
makes sense. Um, but he, did a fantastic job. Like, when you look at how much he's been through, like, just in his brain itself, it just kinda reminds you what a miraculous thing the brain is for him to
Yeah,
be able
cuz
to still talk and walk and
yeah, I was gonna say, cuz you can still interact with him
yeah.
like all the time, like on a pretty like normal, well, on this podcast normal is always like our
As
normal is
we
very
can.
different, but yeah, but I mean the fact that you can interact with them in a way where like he can
Mhm.
communicate to you and do things and still like tell you what
Yeah.
he wants, right? Like it's still pretty,
Mhm.
that's like, yeah, based on what's happened, like that's still pretty impressive, especially like post his stroke, which
Well, and post the stroke, like, it's continued to decline. So, the stroke took away his peripheral vision, um, half of his hearing, and he already had a little bit of, like, an auditory processing delay,
okay.
but it's significantly worse now.
Oh, I
So,
see.
a lot of times now to interact with him, you have to have his attention, and you have to make sure you're saying it loud enough, and you may have to repeat it.
Oh, sure.
Excuse me. So that way, he understands what's being said to him or what's being asked of him.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot considering that it's just a miracle that he can still do certain things. But,
Yeah.
over the last couple years, he's definitely taken, a decline, so it's more caretaking than it was before.
Yeah. That's which I'm sure we'll get into that
Yeah.
part of it. Which I guess we'll use that as our transitional point.
Okay.
So since we like to keep it open forum, um, is there anything you would like to talk about? Or bring up or ask about or like yeah, any
Well, I
whatever
guess
siblings want to talk about, yeah.
I'll just explain, like, the living situation because I
Yeah.
have been listening to all your podcasts, and I've noticed that so far, I'm the only one that my brother actually lives with me. So when our parents passed 3 months apart, both of cancer,
Okay.
and they passed 3 months almost to the day in the same almost in the same hour.
Oh
They
wow. Oh man.
So it was first our mom and then our dad,
Okay.
and, so Georgie has lived with me since, our dad passed away, and that is this past June was 9 years that
Okay.
he has been living with me, and, it's it's a huge change. It's a huge to put it mildly. Like, I went from, a single chick with just taking care of my dog to
Yeah.
wholly,
It's a
a
different
lot.
different
Yeah.
life.
It's a whole different life, and I would definitely say, especially in the last couple years where things have gotten much worse,
Yeah.
it's a lot more caretaking on a daily basis. So, I I I don't know why my parents never, um, put together what would happen, like, would he go into a home or would he do something?
Oh, I see.
You know,
Right. Yeah.
I I had always told my parents, like, from the time I can remember, "I will take care of him. I do not want him going into a home." And I would say that all the time to my parents,
Yeah.
where I would do anything. And even when my parents passed away, like, if that was in their will, like, if that's what would have happened, I would have fought it at the time. I would have fought
Oh,
it, and most of it comes from my background because after I was done high school, I became a job coach. I've done in-home supports, like I've worked in the group
yeah.
homes, I've helped people that with disabilities that live on their own, um, where I've done all that. And now I'm a special ed teacher. I've totally dove right into,
Yeah, you're in the
like,
meat. Yeah, you're in the
yeah,
meat of the whole heart and everything.
so I saw too much that I was not happy with, where I would be like, No, absolutely not. Absolutely
Yeah.
not. Will he live in a place like that?" And I think now with hindsight being 2020, if you find the right type of placement, it could have been really good for him.
Yeah.
Whereas now it would be more difficult for him to make that transition because he went from our parents to me. So he's always been with family.
Yeah. Yeah. Now it's a little bit that particular ship has sailed. But yeah, but it's so different too cuz even like 10 years ago, right? Like each decade kind of has its own kind of like evolution of kind of how housing works, I feel like.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Cuz it's yeah, it's just so different now versus
my
before and
brother was
even
born
in
in the
between.
'60s, so back then,
Yeah.
people with his type of disability were expected to be institutionalized,
Right.
and my mom, thank God, was a stay-at-home mom. And
Mhm.
she was like, "No, no, he stays with me." And then,
Yeah.
she went on to have 3 more, my other brothers and me,
Oh, that's true
where
because he's the oldest. Because though she continued to have kids, like even
yeah,
after knowing, yeah,
yeah. So she was like, "No, I'm a stay-at-home mom." And, if it wasn't for her being so diligent, knowing what his medical background is, there's no way my brother would have survived if it wasn't for
mm,
my mom's diligence.
okay,
And, being there all the time to be able to see what was going on and how things were going with him medically, you
yeah,
know? And we're in the Philadelphia area, so we have access to some of the best medical care in the country,
yeah,
which is very lucky, for how rare, Georgie's medical needs are.
mm-hmm, yeah. No, that's yeah. It's like a roll of the dice thing too. I mean, in general, right? Because kind of like when you get when your sibling gets diagnosed, like then it's like kind of how. So that's like one card, right? Then you have another card that's like how your parents interact with it. You have another
Mhm.
card like where you are, just like physically in the world or in the like in our case in the U.S. But just even if you're in other parts of the world, right? It's like the
Right.
support is different from a medical standpoint and from like a family, right? There's all these like there's so many factors that play into what cultivates like the culture of which you function in your household
Yeah.
with your sibling, and then obviously there's other dynamics of like what your interactions like versus your other siblings versus them, and then your parent. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's so many
Yeah.
levels and
Like,
layers
I
to it.
I actually remember when I realized that my brother wasn't like other people. Like, it wasn't like
Oh,
my other brothers or, other people in school or other kids in the neighborhood, things like that.
yeah.
Like, I actually remember realizing that. I wanna say I think I was in 2nd or 3rd grade,
Okay.
and up to that point, Georgia used to help me with my homework. Like, when I would do my letters or,
Oh
like, if I
yeah, yeah,
had stories to read or, when I had, like, homework, like 2 plus 2 and 3 plus 2 and, like, stuff like
yeah.
that, he would help me with it. And I remember when we got into multiplication tables, I was having trouble with them. And when I brought it home to Georgie and was like, "You help me with this because I don't understand it." He was like, "I don't understand it either. We didn't learn these." And he was like, "That's where I went in the hospital."
Oh,
And when you think about it, in, like, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, you're, like, 8 to 10 years old,
yes.
and that would be exactly where he spent a good 2 to 3 years in and out of the hospital all the time, from being in
Oh,
a coma and things like that, and then
okay.
obviously went to special education after that. So it didn't make sense then, but it makes sense when you think about it, that that's why he didn't learn that kinda thing, because he was in
Like
and
he,
out of hospitals.
yeah, like he wasn't like in the physical location to be able even to
Yeah.
learn it, like let alone like all the other stuff. But he
Right.
physically wasn't there.
Yeah. And I remember him saying, like, "Now, you're doing stuff above what I can do."
Oh, okay.
And being like, and he, of course, go ask dad or go ask, another brother
Yeah.
or something like that, and I kinda just remember being like, "Really? Well, I always go to you." Like, and I just kinda remember like, kinda putting it together and starting to be like, "Oh, that's when all that happened." Because
Oh,
I remember
interesting.
being told, like, Georgie's head is very
Yeah, I
fragile.
was gonna ask, like, did your parents like talk to you about it,
Yes.
or
Yes.
okay,
So, we always knew his head was very fragile because of the shunts and things like that. Like, when we
okay,
would go to the amusement park and things, there were a lot of rides Georgie couldn't do
yeah, from
because
a
of the shunt.
safety, right?
Yeah, like, if it went upside down or if it flung your neck around too much or your head around too much, it was something he couldn't do.
Yeah.
And that's when I kinda started to put it all together that I was like, "Oh, that's why, him and mommy will wait outside when I get on the ride and
Yeah.
Georgie can't," you know?
Oh, yeah. So I guess yeah, because when you're 8, that's when you can actually like connect the dots a little
Yeah.
bit more versus like yeah, because when my mom told me like about my sister when I was like I would have been what like 5, which like
Mhm.
I mean I still remember that conversation pretty well, but yeah, the way that I interact with that's probably very different if I versus if I was older, she got diagnosed later or whatever, right? Like because the wheels start to kind of like
Yeah,
turn as you get older or as you watch
right,
behaviorally like oh like that's not what so and so would do at this age, which is kind of like
right,
your brother's like oh he can't like why can't you do the math like right, which is
right.
not good or bad, it's just like they that it
He's
seems
on
odd.
everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
because
like,
all your
"He's on
other
everything."
brothers like can do that, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's funny because when I was in kindergarten, Georgie went into the hospital for a while, and I wanna say maybe a couple weeks, a little more than a month, something like that.
Okay,
And I don't remember thinking, like, it was serious, I just remember him being gone,
right.
and my mom constantly being with him, and she was really worried about how I was gonna feel, being the only one home because my dad was home with me and my other brothers, um, and I remember her coming to talk to me just saying, "Georgie's sick, he's gonna be okay, but he's sick right now. Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." She's like, "Do you feel okay?" Like, asking all these questions, like, "Is everything
Interesting.
okay at school?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Okay, so you're okay if I go sit at the hospital with your brother?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I vividly remember that conversation. And because I guess of how my mom put it to me, I never worried about it. I never thought anything
Oh,
else,
interesting.
because she made it like he was gonna be okay, but she had to be with him because he wasn't okay right now, but would be, and because I was okay, there was no jealousy, and I think that's what she was worried about. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
as she told me later when I was an adult, she
Okay.
said she was worried because of the way my other brothers would handle things, so she figured, "Okay, well, here comes the 3rd one after Georgie, let me try something different."
Oh,
Does
right.
that make
And
sense?
well, and you're a girl too, so that
Yeah,
there's a different level of that. But that's
yeah,
so interesting. Like, which I mean, this is I mean, it's related and a tangent at the same time. But like
yeah.
the communication of well, okay, let me preface this. So as siblings, there's only so much you can like. You can't we can't change the past of how our parents told us or interacted with us or anything. But that being said, for anybody that is a parent or that knows parents that have younger kids, it's I just want to say that like the way
You
that as a
handle
parent you interact and use specific vocabulary like that
makes a
to
difference.
your normal kids is very important.
Yes.
Like I just wanted to preface that, and I mean obviously like as siblings like it's that's been one of the things for me that's been tough, right? Is like as I like look back onto like whatever like like oh that was kind of not the way that I wanted it to be, or like how I interact with my parents now is very much just that's how
Mhm.
we function to
Yeah.
survive, which is fine. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for like yeah like for your mom to be very to be that intentional with you at that age, to say it that way is really spot on. Like, that's
Well, yeah, and she
amazing.
had some experience by the time she got to me,
That's
like, you know, as
true.
she used to tell me even as
Yeah.
a teenager, she's like, "This is my first rodeo, kid, like,
Yeah,
I
that's
got this."
true. That is
So,
true.
you know, she lived and learned, and I do remember, like, being young and being jealous of Georgie, like, when we would go do stuff, it was always me, my mom, and Georgie, and I remember kinda being like, "Well, why can't I just have, like, me and mommy time?" Like,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
why can't I just have that? Um, and I think when I kinda started to act out a little bit about that, she gave me the me and mommy time. But
Oh.
she would check in with me to be like, "Are you okay? Like, do you feel sick? Are you alright? Well, Georgie's not, so is it okay, like, if I go spend some time with him at the hospital?" You know, so I think she was kind of reading the cues, if you will, like, I think
Yeah, like
with me,
that.
I think she did a great job, and but it was trial and error. There's no handbook for,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
being a
true.
parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially back then when you didn't have like, oh, there's all these internet things and there's these right, like now I feel like parents are just every parent on the planet. It's like, here, you should do these things with your kids, but like before, like that's not how it worked.
Yeah,
Like
and we're
you would
talking about
try
late
things or talk to your
70s,
friends and like you just
right?
hope that your kid turned out okay. Like, which is not bad, right? It's just we live in a very different era of that
Mhm.
realm of parenting now,
Yeah.
and like caregiving for that matter. You know, like how people would even take care of their siblings, or not even take care of them because they would be in institutionalized homes or
Yeah.
just in other places, right? Like there's you don't have a handbook either for like how
No.
to take care of your brother, because even if you did what your mom did before, it's almost irrelevant because he's different now. He's older. There's other stuff that's happened. Like it's
Yeah, and
different.
there's times where it's been, you know, since my parents have passed away, there have been times where Georgie's been in the hospital, and it has been so hard, like, e any kid, no matter how old you are, you miss your parents when they passed away, period,
Mm.
end of
Okay.
story, but it's different, I think, when you're a sibling and you have something like, you know, our siblings that goes on where there's big health concerns and there's big decisions that have to be made, and
Yeah.
it's on you to make them. And there's been a couple times where I've, you know, literally walked the halls of the hospital crying because I missed my mom and I didn't know what to do. You
Mm.
know, where
Yeah.
I think, well, what would mom do? What is the best thing? You know,
Yeah.
and you're just so like, oh my God. And it kind of gives you a little glimpse into what things must have looked like from your mom's perspective. And
Yeah.
that's good, but scary and emotional.
Yeah, I think the emotional part is not something that
You're
I
ever
ever
prepared
thought
for.
about. Yeah, and I feel like you don't think about that part. Like for me, like it's very much like I know that they will come eventually, right? Not to the level of like hospital visits probably that you've had to do so far, but like it's just there's a certain amount of like you know about it, you worry about it, you kind of go through ups and downs when you think about it, but like yeah, the emotional part is not something I ever like you don't when you think about you taking into that position, you don't ever factor in the
No.
emotional part of the equation because you don't. Cause I'm sure it's like it's a real time thing. Like when it happens, that's when the kind of like,
Yeah.
all chaos induces.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Where
Yeah.
I hope, you know, she's on her cloud somewhere, like, either smiling
Yeah.
or laughing at me because 'cause I'm always like, "I get it, mom. I get it.
Yeah,
Get it."
at least if you know she's having a good time enjoying watching it, then like you know that she's with you in good spirits or something
Yeah.
like.
It can be tough, though, because there's sometimes where I'm just like, "I want my mom. I want her so bad," you
Yeah.
know, because it can be really tough to make those decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't look forward to that day. Which is I always feel like I say this a lot, but there's just times like where I feel like I mean what we talk about, not you and I, but just as a
Right.
general thing on the podcast, it can be dire. But like at the same time, like that's very real. Like we're not sugarcoating any part of this
No,
conversation at all because it's like the thing about
it's
it is like
emotional.
there's so many times you go to the outside world and people are like, "Oh, you're so lucky." Like, "Oh, but like but they can do this," or like, "Oh, but you have this other life." But there's everyone's trying to throw in these like golden sprinkles and whatever to make
Yeah.
your life better. But it's like I like are yes, they're not completely wrong, but like there's so much other hurt that comes with it. We're not even talking about burden, right? We're just talking about like there's a whole other section of our life that
It's
you're probably
so
never gonna see that
mhm.
hurts a lot, right? It hurts that like we can't do the things we actually want to do as a family, right? It hurts that like
Yeah.
you can't go to eat certain food because you just want to try it for the heck of it, right? It hurts
Yeah.
that you can't be a certain distant like miles away from your sibling, depending obviously on your situation. I've met people all across the board where people in your situation where you have to be like within an X amount of mile proximity versus I've had people like they're across the country and their circumstances are very different, right? But
Right.
it's still this thing where
Every little thing I do,
like
I have to think of him.
yeah, like
Where
you're
I live,
always
where I
just
work, the proximity to home and work, I have to think of him. And
yeah,
thankfully, I only work a mile away from where I live, so it literally takes me like 4 minutes to get
yeah,
home. So, if God forbid that there is some kind of emergency or something like that,
yeah,
I'm super close, but, there's other things you don't think of, where you kinda take on the role of the parent. And
yeah,
this is something else that we can talk about is your role as the sibling changes. I'm not the fun sibling that I used to be. And that hurt.
yeah.
That I
Mm.
can't even begin to tell you how much that bothers me because I used to be the one that he would go to for if mom said no.
Oh, nice.
I
That's
was
a
the
fun.
one who would say
Yeah,
yes. And I would
yeah,
bring it to him or give him whatever he wanted or take him to go do whatever he wanted. And
yeah,
now I have to be the heavy that my mom was, and it changes everything. And
yeah,
that hurts because I didn't want that part to stop, but I don't have
yeah.
a choice, We have caretakers that come in the home when I'm at work,
Mm.
so it enables me to go to work
Yeah.
still. So we have in-home supports, and I have a cognitive therapist that comes in a few days a week for him,
Okay.
each of them that will do different things with him, exercise his brain, get him to think, and then the in-home support person basically is the fun person that gets to take him to go do whatever he wants.
Oh yeah.
And we have been very blessed because we'll get into caretakers in a minute. We have been very blessed with the one that we have.
Okay.
We've had her for 7 years,
That's a
7 and
long time.
yeah,
7 years?
7 years,
That's a
yeah.
long. Yeah. That is a very
Um,
long time.
and she is phenomenal. She is absolutely wonderful, and the relationship with her and my brother is great, and they mess with each other, they'll joke with each other, and I love it. I trust her wholeheartedly, like, she could be
Yeah.
like, "Sue, I decided to take him to, like, New York for the day." I'd be like, "Alright, have fun,"
Yeah.
whatever.
Like bring me back
But
a souvenir or something.
right.
Like.
I wholeheartedly trust her, and I know that, she would do whatever it took to either defend or protect my brother, so I don't worry about that. I've
Yeah.
seen her do it, and I've heard things, like, we're in a very small community, so everybody knows everybody or everybody knows somebody who
Oh,
knows
I see. I see.
me.
Okay.
So, I've actually had multiple other people come to me and say, "I saw your brother today, and his caretaker is so wonderful. You should see." Like, they were joking around, they were laughing, and,
Oh,
like, all
interesting.
kinds of stuff where
Yeah.
she knows about it now, but at the time, she didn't, that people in the community would come to me and tell
And
me.
like yeah, give you the inside and everything like
Yeah.
that.
She she didn't know at the time, but, it really helped build that trust, like, especially in the beginning. But,
Yeah.
their relationship now is phenomenal, but and I'm just gonna be very raw, it makes me jealous
Yeah.
because she is now what I used to be
Yeah.
with my brother.
Yeah.
And that it does make me jealous because when he doesn't do something he's supposed to do or, something has to happen where it's the heavy, she's like, "All right, well, I guess we're going to talk to Sue." And he's like, "Oh, man," because he
Oh,
knows.
that hurt. That
um,
makes me sad. That's like, cause that sucks. Like
Plus,
that's not who you want to be, but it's not optional though. You have like someone has to be that person.
yeah.
It's
And it didn't
uh
happen overnight. Like it didn't happen the day after my dad
yeah,
died or
which
the
is
day.
nice that it's not an overnight switch, but
Yeah.
it's
Well, the switch to him under my roof was. Like, it was
oh
the day my dad died, but the
okay.
but the heavy happened
Okay.
over time by my own trial and error. So when Georgie would be like, "Well, can I have that chocolate bar and that chocolate bar and a Pepsi and a Mountain Dew and this and that?" And I'd be like, "All right, all right, all right," because that's the sister I was. Whatever
Yeah.
he wanted, I would give him. And then slowly I learned why those things are bad for him to have all the time. And
Oh.
it it slowly started to happen where I had to become the heavy, and
Oh
that
man.
was not fun when I'd have to start saying no, to
Yeah.
certain things. Like, it just it hurts. It really bothers me, but
Yeah.
within, within the 3 months between when my mom passed to before my dad passed, like, a
Okay.
couple weeks after my mom passed,
Mhm.
he comes to me and says, "I wanna get a tattoo." Lizzie, you
That's
can't
cool, I guess.
like, well, and I have several, so I'm like, I don't have any room to say no, but thank God our dad was still alive because I was like, "That's a daddy question, dude." I was like, "I
Yeah.
that's above my pay grade." I was like, "You
That's
gotta talk to dad."
I don't even know what
So
I would do with that. Like, I
so
don't like,
yeah.
yeah, I
Well,
don't
my
know.
dad, thinking our whole lives, our parents are very old fashioned. You have to realize, like, they were
Okay.
very old fashioned.
O
Tattoos were no, no, no.
okay.
When I got my first one, I was like 27, and my parents lived 1,000 miles away from me, and they
Okay.
still lectured me. Well, my mom lectured,
Wow.
and I was 27 years
Yeah,
old.
I was like, "You're an adult?" And then,
I
like
still got lectured about doing that to my body, and anyway, so after my mom passed and then Georgie asked within, 2 weeks, something like that, and it wasn't, like, a bad one, he wanted to get, like, "In memory of mom" with,
oh,
like,
yeah,
Irish
okay.
clover leaf or something.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Um, I was like, "Alright, that's a daddy question," so I tell him to go to my dad, thinking my dad's gonna say no. My dad's gonna be like, "Absolutely
Yeah,
not,
like, I don't
dude."
have to yeah, just uh-huh.
Like, number 1,
Okay.
no. Number 2, because of all the fibromos all over him with the
Oh,
neurofibromatosis, like,
yes, yes, yes,
it's
yes,
a
yes.
double-edged sword there. My dad says, "Yes,
Um,
as long as you can put it." My dad says to him in front of me, "As long as you can put it somewhere that when you're wearing a
I
suit, you can hide it, I don't have a problem with
I
it."
but
Wha What? What? So Georgie turns around, looks at me
what
like,
what did what did
"Woo."
you do?
I'm like, "Thanks, dad,
Did you just
thanks."
did you take him to go get, like
Yeah,
oh
I did. I had to. Yeah, I did. That I didn't realize I was creating a monster, which is why I say the heavy didn't happen overnight. Because
oh.
you ever read that little kid's book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like that.
Oh.
So I took him to get the tattoo. So proud of it, so excited. They found a spot, a pretty good spot that didn't have a lot of fibromas that they could tattoo over. So it was in loving memory of mom with the four-leaf clover. All right, awesome. All right, and I'm thinking this is it. This
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
It was a little tattoo. Okay, whatever. Then my dad passes, and a couple weeks later, I want to get dad's name added to it.
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, it's just dad, so okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's just get it. All right, so we got dad added to it. Maybe a year later, something like that. I want another one. I
Uh
want to get another, and I'm like, I have like 7 or 8 of them, so I have no room to sit there and be like, "Oh, they're
Oh,
bad."
like, no, yeah, yeah, you can't, like
Yeah. So I'm
yeah.
like, "Well, what do you wanna get?" And he's like, "Well, Grumpy," because Grumpy's his favorite character
Oh, like
from
from Snow
Disney.
White?
Yeah.
Okay.
So on his ankle, okay, fine. We found a spot and he has Grumpy. Little while later,
Oh my
maybe a
god.
year or 2 later, I want another one.
I mean
So he has a good old Eagles emblem because, we're all Eagles fans here.
okay.
Um, he has a Philadelphia Eagle on his arm.
Yeah.
Thank God he hasn't asked for any more, and I hope he can't hear me telling this story that he'll ask for another one.
Yeah. That's I
Like,
mean, yeah,
yeah.
I
Mhm.
cool. I yeah, I'm so like, like, the part of me, like, "Oh, that's so awesome." And the other part of me, I'm like, "What?" I mean, that's pretty incredible on, like, his part and your part and, like, the whole situation, but yeah.
Oh, there's so many things, like, I learned that if you leave him alone with an Easter basket, you will have to clean up the toilet later. I learned that the
Oh,
hard way.
that's brutal. That's not. Yeah, I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. Which,
No.
do you know
And
what?
I've had
Like,
to do it multiple times over the years. Like, not from an Easter basket, but
but from
because
other
yeah,
equivalent things.
like,
Yeah.
when he used to have multiple in-home support people, like, he would have
Mhm.
someone do the morning shift, someone do the afternoon, until I got home from work. So, he would play the system and not tell the second shift person what the first shift person gave him. So, like, if he
Oh.
had a Pepsi and a donut and this and that and the other thing, and then he would tell the second shift person, "No, I haven't had any sweets yet," and then they would take him for, like, a king size, chocolate bar and
Oh
Mountain
no, that's a
Dew and,
yeah.
whatever he could get because he has his own money, where he would,
Yeah,
like,
like you
go
can't
into the
stop him
store.
from
Yeah.
vocalizing what he wants to spend it
And he
on
could get
because
what
it.
he wants, and then all of a sudden, I would get home and, dinner's going on and he disappears, and all of a sudden I hear because he won't speak up, that which is like a whole other thing. He will not speak up. What you actually hear is, "Uh-oh, uh-oh,"
Oh no.
and that's not good.
Yeah, you already yeah, that there's no other words need to be said at that point, like,
Yeah,
if he's
yeah.
gonna start with that.
So you learn, very quickly how like that you have to be the heavy. But, fortunately, Asia's been with him long enough that she knows his personality really well, and she can actually tell when he's lying.
Yeah.
And or she'll check in with me because unfortunately she's had to clean up the bathroom a time or two because of him lying to her. So she's wise to it now.
Oh,
So
I see, I
she
see.
still will give him what he wants, but like she'll make sure,
But she
hey,
actually has, yeah, but she
yeah.
knows, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh man. The
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But, the in-house living, like, where, he is actually living with me, and he actually lives with me and my boyfriend is phenomenal with him.
Yeah.
And, even reminds me to be patient sometimes when my patience is running really thin.
Which is great. You
Um,
always need the outside party
yeah.
to kind of like
Well, and it's
remind
easy, and
you.
I
Yeah.
feel like some people don't understand. It's your sibling. No matter what, it's your sibling, and sometimes you don't hold back when it's your sibling, where you're like, "That doesn't look good. Don't wear that," or
Oh, right, right,
whatever
right.
it happens to be, whatever you're thinking, you don't hold back with your siblings. I grew up with all brothers, so there's
Yeah,
very
you have
little.
really no filter on that
Yeah,
level.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was used to being around guys all the time, so
Yeah.
I'm like, there was no filter.
Yeah.
Um, so, you have to kinda think like that, but my boyfriend's been absolutely phenomenal and so patient and so calm with him that he'll go to him sometimes and try to, like, ask him for stuff or
Yeah.
whatever, but it works out really good. But anyway, when you're in this type of situation, it's tough because I can't leave him home alone all day. If a care worker calls out, I have to call out, you know?
Oh, yeah, because you're very
If
dependent on other people having to come into support. Otherwise,
yeah,
you don't. Yeah.
yes. If there's a doctor's appointment, and depending on what the doctor's appointment is, like, I will have Asia do some
Yeah.
because she's been around long enough that she knows a lot of the
Yeah, like she
history, she
know,
knows
but
what's
that
going on.
takes a long time to get to
Right.
the level that she's at with
Oh,
you
yes,
and
yeah.
your brother. Yeah.
But, when he has to see, like, a neurologist or his neurosurgeon, or, some more specialized things like
Yeah.
that, I wanna be there. I need to be there for that because decisions might need to be made.
Yeah.
Um, and you have to take off work for that because you know how those kinds of offices are, especially in the city. Um,
Yeah.
that's an all-day event.
Oh yeah.
So, you're not just thinking of, your own personal days or your own sick days to just be like, "Oh, I don't feel good today. I'm not going in." No, you're
Yeah.
holding it in because you might need that day for him when he doesn't feel good. Because when he
Yeah.
doesn't feel good, especially after COVID, a lot of the caretakers don't wanna come in, you know? Asia's
Oh.
really good about it because she's like, "I'll put on a mask. Don't worry about it. He's fine."
Yeah.
Like, she's okay with it. But, it's a whole thing that you constantly have to be ready for. I do let him have, like, an hour or 2 by himself at the end of the day, like,
Mhm.
in between before I come home from work and when the last person leaves,
Yeah.
at his own request because he's like, I want time to myself." Which I can respect. Who
Yeah.
wouldn't? He is a 50-some-year-old man. He
Yeah.
that. I totally respect that. So I let him have that, but I make sure I'm on call. Like, if you need me, call me, things like that.
Yeah.
It helps that I teach high school, that I can actually verbalize that to my students, and
Oh, yeah, because they're old
very
enough to understand how
they're
that
very
works.
understanding, they're so good about it. So are my bosses, my administrators are
Oh,
absolutely
that's excellent.
wonderful about it, where they're very understanding that if I need to leave in a hurry, and it has happened. One
Okay.
time we had some plumber tried to get in where we live,
Ooh.
and, even though I tell Georgie all the time, "You don't open the door for anybody. You do
You
not open
can
the door for you
yeah,
know."
you can only yeah.
Yeah, you know how that goes. Well, one of my dogs is a shepherd, and she is fiercely protective over
Okay.
George.
That's very
And
convenient.
oh, yeah, I didn't even teach her, she just started doing it
Yeah,
herself.
no,
She
that's awesome.
picked it up herself. Anyway, this dude manages to open the door, and my dog was sitting there waiting for him, and went to go attack him to a point that he told me later he could hear her jaw actually snap shut where his arm would have been.
Oh my god.
And he was able to pull himself out and then shut the door fast enough that she would have absolutely tore him up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh, well, that's good to know." Like, that she will
Yeah.
actually protect him. So, anyway, Georgie was scared by the whole thing and calls me right away.
Yes.
And I call down to my principal, I'm like, "Hey," and I told him what's going on, I said, "I need to go." He's like, "Alright, get your stuff, I'll be up there in 2 seconds." He actually took over my class,
Oh,
so I could
wow.
run home. I was home within 4 minutes. The
Right.
dude was still outside in the yard where I was able to, like, give him the what for. Um, so you have to be aware of stuff like that when you are the primary caretaker in home, where if they're in a residence or something like that, those are things you don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
And these are things that you do have to worry about and you have to think of. And I, you can call this lucky or unlucky. I was never able to physically have children of my own. So I don't have kids. If
Yeah.
someone is in this position and they are still trying to raise a family, it is next to impossible
I yeah. I'd
because you
I
have to manage
my
all of them.
brain even like in this hypothetical scenario, I mean, for somebody it's not hypothetical, but in our particular us talking about it's hypothetical, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't my brain can't even it can't
Wrap my head
actually
around
even
it.
wrap around it because it's just such like yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
'cause
know
you
how
have more
people
people
do
to
it.
care for, more laundry, more cleaning up to do, more,
Yeah.
and it's a lot. And, I would tell another sibling who was like me what before my parents passed away, because again, I was very much like, there is no way on God's green earth is my brother going into a home. I will take him.
Yeah.
And this was, I mean, I was like 10, 15, 20 years old when I would say that.
Yeah.
And if it was in their will, I would have fought it tooth and nail. Now, hindsight, if I were able to have had a family,
Yes.
I don't know how I would balance all of this.
Yeah.
And as much as I would say, if as much as it may tear out a sibling's heart to put your sibling in a place, the sooner you can get them used to it before their health gets bad or before their cognitive
Mm.
ability starts to decline, the
Yeah.
better off you are because
That's
you
true.
do have to refocus where your priorities are. And
Yeah.
you're in a position when you are the 100% caretaker that you have to prioritize between your brother and your own kids. It's unfair, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
So, that would be the advice that I would give is I would say you need to think long term. That's
Yeah.
not something I thought of.
I mean,
I
it's
just
something we don't want to even think about, right? Like, even as I'm hearing you talk about, like, I know I have time before I even hit that point, like with my sister, right? Like, it's
yeah.
not like right because it and it's like it's such a I really don't want to think about it, but you can't at the same time like it. You do need to on some level think about it because it's
Mhm.
at some point it is gonna be but it's just me and her. Like,
Right.
I don't have other options. Like, it's just yeah.
And my other siblings don't help. There's no help from them, as far as the
Yeah.
daily caretaking. So yeah, it
It's
is what it is. And
yeah,
Georgie's, I like to call it Georgie's leash on me. So first of all, no matter what the disability is or where it is, the
yeah.
big brother card never goes away with him. Let me just tell you
Which
that.
is so. I mean, that's comforting on some level. I think for some people, right? Because then you know that that part of them is like just a normal human that you know.
Well, you know
But
how they always say, like, the oldest in a family is always, like, the caretaker. They're always the one
oh
that
yeah, yeah.
and it is Georgie to a T. It is very
Oh, this yeah.
so
Oh man.
oh god.
Yeah,
We I could walk out that door and tell him, "I'm just gonna go get gas. I'll be right back."
yeah.
2 seconds later, I will get a text, "Don't forget to eat your breakfast." Like, Sunday mornings, my boyfriend and I go food shopping, and we tell him, "We'll be back in an hour. We're going food shopping. We'll be right back." Within 10 minutes, he has discovered that Siri will do group texts.
Oh,
Text us, "Don't forget to eat your breakfast." Alright? If during the school months when I'm at school, he
yeah.
knows I'm done at 3 o'clock and I'm home
Okay,
by 3:05. He sets a clock by me.
okay.
If I am 3:07, 3:08, 3:10, I get a text, "Time to come home." And I'll be like, "Oh my god." And he will do it to my boyfriend too. "Time to come home." Like, if he
I
feels like it's too late and he's not home yet, "Time to come home."
wow. That's I.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, maybe I'll take back what I said about it being a comforting thing. I don't know if that's comforting now. Like, I don't
Oh,
know.
and it is every day, if and during the times where I've used respite care to, like,
Yeah,
go away for a weekend, to have, like,
yeah,
a weekend to myself or something like that, um, he will text if he can, like, if Asia is the one that's taking care of him when I'm away, she usually has him pretty occupied, but,
yeah.
I will still get texts, "Are you having fun? Did you eat your lunch? Did you eat your dinner?
Oh,
Don't stay out too late, don't drink too much." Like, he will send the whole gamut
he,
of, the big brother card.
yeah. That that's so funny too, because it's
It
just like he,
is.
like that. Yeah, for all the things that he could ask or tell you or
Mhm.
complain about or want, it's the make sure you come home, make
Yeah,
sure you get
and
enough sleep. Yeah, it's so
it's
interesting.
don't get me wrong, it's funny, but when it's for every single
Oh
day,
no,
like,
exactly. That's
drives
why I
me
was like, from my perspective,
drives
you
me
telling me
batty.
this is hilarious. But yeah, I was thinking about like, I'm like every day. Like,
Yeah,
okay, that's a little, yeah. If it was like
every
once a month or something, or like
mhm,
on certain occasions, I'm like, oh, okay,
right.
that's different. Yeah, but every day's a
Like,
little. That's a
we're
little.
doing
Yeah.
we're doing this from the basement, okay? And I'm in my home, in my basement, and I told Georgie I'm going down to go do arts and crafts because he doesn't know what a podcast is, and I didn't
Oh,
wanna
okay, yeah. Arts and crafts, sure. Yeah, that
yeah.
works. Yeah.
So, this is, like, where my Cricut machine and all my arts and crafty stuff
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
Okay.
it's normal for him that I will come down here for, like, an hour or 2 and do some stuff, and I can't believe I haven't gotten a text yet, like,
Really?
"Where are you? What are you doing?"
Yeah.
He knows where I am. He could probably hear me, not actually hear what I'm saying, but he could
Oh,
probably
but he
hear
knows that
me.
your voice is
Yeah,
like, yeah,
my
yeah, yeah,
voice is
yeah.
brown. I I wait, I will bet you $1 that by the time we are done this, I
No,
will get a
I was just gonna say, like, if you get that text while we're talking, yeah, that it'd like be like
I
on
will let
cue and
you
on
know.
brand.
I will
Yeah,
absolutely look, I'm
yeah,
I'm taking it off vibrate right now,
yeah.
so the
Just to
next
see, yeah. I just, yeah. Can't get
and
more
he's
real than that in real
hysterical.
time. Like,
Yeah. He has such an awesome personality, like, he doesn't get mad. Like, his he is so, like,
interesting.
chill. He'll get upset and he'll let you know, like, he's anxious or something like that, but he doesn't get mad. He does not curse. He will not curse. I mean, I've offered him $20 just to say a curse word, and he says no. Like, he is so funny and just he's a good time.
He sounds so fun to be around.
He
Just like
really
from his
is.
personality, I'm like,
Well,
yeah. I'm kind of like,
he
can I just have like a beer with him or something? Like,
oh, he loves
like,
his beer. He loves
yeah.
his beer. I have to, like, curb him on that because he'll keep going.
Oh
He
yeah.
oh, yeah, he will. He when he wants to, not curse, but, like, if he wants to, kinda give you
Go
the
down more that road of
yeah, like, where
yeah.
he maybe has a curse word to say to you,
Uh-huh.
um, he'll go, "Hmm," and that's his way of maybe saying something that rhymes with duck.
Yeah. Yeah.
He'll go, "Hmm." And that's it, and you know, he just basically flipped you off, like, that's
Yeah.
the extent of it. He's so funny, like, that's what
Yeah.
he'll do. But
Aw.
over the years, how I was saying how I didn't become the heavy overnight, like, it happened in time, and
Yeah.
one of the ways I learned that I had to become the heavy when it came to drinking is if we would go somewhere and I would have a drink, and he would be like, "Well, I wanna drink too." "Well, of course, you're a grown man,
Yeah, like
you
yeah,
can
who
have
am
a
I to
beer."
stop you from having a drink? Like, whatever.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But he'll slam a beer bottle, like,
Oh.
to a point where you have to take it away from him and be like, "Alright, slow down, slow down."
Yeah.
So, I try to do a trip with him every year. Every year
Okay.
since our parents passed away, I try to do a trip.
Yeah.
And several years ago, we went to Jamaica, and it was just me and him, and we went to Jamaica,
Yeah.
and the resort we stayed at had a poolside bar. He never saw a poolside bar before. So we will paddle in the pool, and it's an all-inclusive, so you don't have to
Oh,
worry
yeah,
about
so yeah, you just go and
yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Not a big
So
deal.
he, goes up to the bar and, orders his first drink, and you know how, like, at some of those places, they're always like, "Who wants a shot?" And then they try to make it a party and
Yes,
whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So anyway, they start doing that, and Georgie's like, "Well, I want a shot."
Oh,
"No.
oh,
No."
I
And he's like, "You're not the boss of me." Or he'll once in a blue moon, like, very rarely, especially if he gets really mad when I tell him no, "You're not mommy. You don't say no."
oh, man, yeah.
Very rarely, but
But
he
yeah, but
will
he
pull
will
that
pull it out if he's
he will
really
pull that card. "You're not mommy."
yeah.
So, he's seeing everybody else do the shots. Why can't I do what everybody
Oh
else is doing?
gosh.
And I'm like, "Oh crap, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?" I
Yeah,
put
like yeah, I would just be like in panic mode or something.
I
Like,
pulled because I knew we were gonna be there all day. I pulled a 20 out
okay.
that I had, like, in, one of those waterproof purse things.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
I take the bartender aside and I said, "Look, I don't think I had to explain this because you can see clearly that my brother has a disability."
Oh, okay,
And
yeah.
I
It's not
said
like like it's like a hidden like you can
yeah,
tell.
it's
Like,
not
yeah.
hidden. Like, you could
Yeah.
see it, you can hear it when you talk to him, like, it's not
Yeah.
hidden in any way. So I give the bartender a 20, I explain the situation, and I'm like, "If you could just give him, like, water, and even if you put, like, a drop of blue Caraco or something just to color it, like, to
Just
make
to
him
give him the
feel like"
illusion that like
yeah, that he's
yeah.
doing what everybody else is doing, and no matter what he asks for, after every beer, he gets a soda. 'Cause he'll
Yeah.
milk the soda because he wants the beer, so he'll go real slow with the soda, so I'm like, "So if you can alternate and
Oh,
then"
that's so interesting. Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
alternate and then do, like, a literal drop of blue Caraco to
Yeah,
change the
just
color.
to yeah.
He's like, yeah, here, takes the 20, took care of us for the rest of the day, so every time they were like, "Shot, shot," and, they learned his name, they're like, "Georgie, here's yours," and he's like, "Yeah."
Oh.
So, he's like I'm thinking, "I win," right? That's a
Yeah,
win,
that sounds
right?
great. Like
Till we're, like, 10 shots in.
that's a lot of shots. I mean,
Oh,
for
yeah,
even
we're,
for
like,
like a
10
regular
shots in.
person, like that's a 10 shots is a lot.
He thinks and while everybody else is having trouble walking in the pool and
Right.
talking and doing everything, he's like, "I'm just really good at drinking." That's what he started
Oh
bragging
no.
and saying. Like, "Oh my god,
Oh
what did
gosh.
I do?"
Oh, I mean,
He had a
you
great time, and
right.
yeah, so I learned, like, maybe sometimes you just have to stick with the no,
Uh
you
oh,
know?
but the
Well, some of it is just trial and error. It's just
yeah,
trial and error.
like you didn't know, like because
I
you
had
did
no
what you
idea.
could in real time, given that like where you yeah, like and you're on vacation too, right? Like if you're at home, it's much easier to just say no, like
Right.
at home. Like when you're
Yeah.
out somewhere else, like
It's so hard, and, thank God it turned out okay, but he was bragging about it, and
oh my
everyone
gosh,
there, God love them, they were very nice to him. They were like, "Yeah, you're the man. You had the most shots. Yeah, dude." Like, they
yeah,
were super nice to him about it.
yeah, no,
And
that's
I'm
great.
like, "I shoulda just said no." Like,
To save yeah, to save all the yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, now I put a limit on it and I'm like, I'm a little more comfortable with being the bad guy. I don't like it, but I'm more comfortable with it where I'm like, no,
Yeah.
3 and you're cut off. Like, that's it. No, I don't care.
Yeah, you're more settled into like the shoe that then you have to kind of
Yes.
wear. Yeah.
Where sometimes my other sibling, um, not the middle one more than the other one, will be like, "Oh, come on, let him have more than one." I'm like, "Okay, then he's staying at your house tonight.
Right. Oh yeah, there you go.
All right, I'm leaving him here then. You
Yeah.
can deal with the consequences.
Yeah.
Bye." And
Yeah.
and he doesn't wanna do that, so he will say no. And
Yeah.
it's not good for him, it's not. I want him to be able to do what everybody else does to a certain extent, but
Yeah.
I don't want him doing that,
I mean,
you know?
just for everybody listening, having more than 3 shots for a normal person is also
Yeah,
not
no
great.
shots,
Like, that's
no
not.
shots,
We're not.
no shots, beer, 3 beers,
Oh,
and
three
that's it.
beers. Oh, okay.
No shots, no.
Yeah. The.
I absolutely say no to that after that little fiasco. No shots, I
Yeah.
just say beer, beer, sorry, I shoulda been
Yeah.
more
Okay. Oh no, that
specific.
may. Okay. But even then, still, like three still. I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
There are
he'll
limits that it's just from just
but
take
it's
care of
easy, like,
yourself.
when you, like, couple it, like, say if you're like, "Here's 1, here's a soda, here's your second, here's a soda,"
Mhm.
or whatever
Or
drink,
whatever in between. Yeah.
iced
Yeah.
tea, whatever, in between them, so then it kinda spaces it out because, like I said, he'll slam them.
Yeah.
So I really have to be careful. We just did a cruise in June, and, thank God he actually didn't even ask for any.
Oh,
I think he had 1 the whole cruise, 1
interesting.
1 beer.
Just
He was just perfectly happy watching everybody on the Lido deck dance and do their thing. So he
huh.
wasn't even thinking of it. So I'm like,
Yeah.
"All right, well, maybe we're out of that phase now."
Yeah, what hey, makes your life significantly easier not having to like deal with that, which is
Not
great.
having to say no.
Yeah.
But there are definitely times, that I have to tell him no, or his anxiety will get the better of him. So there's certain things I can't tell him until it's gonna happen. So
Oh,
that
yeah.
could be doctor's appointments, it could be something fun. Like if we're going to the movies or he has a doctor's appointment, I will not tell him till we're ready to leave.
Oh, like to get into the car and leave,
Yeah.
like that level of
'Cause it could
okay.
be a good anxiety, like an excited type of anxiety, or if it's a doctor's appointment, it's a very scared type of anxiety where he will, he is petrified that they're gonna put him back in the hospital.
Oh.
And in all fairness, he's been in the hospital a lot
Yeah,
in
I was
his
gonna say, I think that from even what you've told me, like I can imagine that's not a fun, like,
mm-mm,
yeah,
no. So and I can understand that. I don't even try to fight that anxiety because I would feel the same way if I were him.
yeah,
With or without a disability, if
exactly.
you've been in and out all the time your whole life, then you're gonna feel that way. So I don't tell him, um, and then I have to sometimes make promises I may not always be able to deliver on. When they go to do his blood pressure, when you first go in and they weigh you and they do all
Yes.
because his blood pressure is always super, super high from the white coat syndrome. Do you know
Oh,
what that is?
no.
It's when you have anxiety of, like, a doctor's office, so you might have normal blood pressure, but because you're in a doctor's office, it's
Oh, okay.
skyrocketed.
I've heard about that, but I didn't know there was like terms for it. But I know I have. Yeah, I've met
Yeah,
people that happens to
yes.
and everything. Yeah.
So, when they're doing it, I have to promise him that they're not gonna put him in the hospital this visit. And 9 times out of 10, I am right.
Yeah.
There's only been once that I wasn't right.
Yeah.
But I have to promise and swear up and down on everything good and holy that he is not
Not
going in the
gonna be in
hospital.
the hospital.
And
Yeah.
then they'll wait a little bit, and then they'll do it again, and then it's in a normal range, and I'm like, "Yeah, see, there you go." You know?
Oh yeah.
They're like, "Oh my god, he needs blood pressure medicine." I'm like,
But no, yeah, he
"Mm,
really doesn't. He just
no."
the exact yeah that but that anxiety is very real. Cause oh yeah, cause like the way that the amount of times like he's in and out and like the whole thing. It's yeah, that's fun for nobody.
No, no.
Yeah.
But it is a very it's extremely difficult to be the 24/7 caretaker.
Yeah. Yeah, you
I
must be
do under
exhausted like all the time. I can only imagine, and I don't. Yeah, like that has to be exhausting.
it can be, like, for the most part, it's okay, from day to day. There
Okay.
are moments, where
Mm.
it's extremely exhausting
Okay.
and, my like I mentioned before, my boyfriend, we all live together and he is absolutely phenomenal with it.
Yeah.
There are times my brother also has been suffering from short-term memory loss. So if you tell him it's Monday, he doesn't always realize it's Monday. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And he might wake up and start wandering around, confused about what's going on, where he should be. Should he be in bed? Should he be awake? Like,
Yeah. Because you just can't remember like what's
yeah,
happening.
just what's going on.
Yeah.
Where even my boyfriend has gotten up with him and, you know, reminded him, "Oh, it's bedtime, it's we should all
Yeah.
be in bed right now," and, get him to go back to bed, or if he maybe didn't get to the bathroom soon enough,
Hmm.
which happens a little more often than we would like it to,
Yeah.
um, has cleaned up after him or, helped him get in the shower after that and,
Yeah.
got out clean clothes and,
Hmm.
so it's really great having, that support in-house with me.
Yeah.
It's super kind and patient and understanding and, doesn't freak out or doesn't yell at him and, knows that it's not something he can help. When if he breaks something, like, he's not freaking out. He's like, "Oh, we'll fix that, we'll fix it, don't worry," so that is
Yeah.
super, super awesome, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, that's great. Like that's yeah.
Well, it's kinda like the litmus test, that maybe
Oh,
you did when you
100%.
were
Yeah.
younger.
It's very much like
Yeah.
yeah, so
If
when
you didn't
they first met, did Georgie like approve or give him like whatever, or did that just take time, or like what was it like when they first met?
Oh, it was good. It was good. They got along right away. He was really good with him and very patient and understanding. So they got along from the get-go, if you will. But even from the time I was a kid, like if I had a date and somebody was coming over, because my parents had the strict rule that if somebody was taking you out, they had to come in the house and say hi to both parents.
Yeah.
Um, so if they met my brother, I would sit and watch how they reacted to him.
Oh, okay.
'Cause A, if you're not gonna treat him with dignity and respect, then
Yeah.
I know how you're gonna be, and I don't
Yeah.
want that.
Right.
And the other thing, knowing even as a teenager, knowing that someday this would be my job, if they weren't willing to accept him on a first date, there's no point in continuing with that.
Yeah,
Like,
that
you
makes
don't
sense.
get another shot. This is how some people you may date some people who have children and you become a step parent or whatever, as much
Yeah.
as you have to accept that, for me, this is mine. You have to
Yes.
accept mine.
Yeah. No,
So
yeah.
it's a litmus test that you do from, like, way early on. Like, if
Oh, I
somebody's
mean, I feel like every sibling I've talked to,
Mhm.
like, not that has brought it up, but like, if we ever get onto this topic about like how they've met like their current partner or their spouse, or like if they're or if they're currently trying to figure it out, right? Like 100% of the people that we get on this topic will bring that up, right? Because it's just it, which is interesting now, like that it's happened so often. It's kind of this idea that like it's like I for the longest time felt that it was like a burden thing because I was like, oh, like it's just extra stuff. But
Mhm.
I think about it now, and I'm like, well, really, that's a very helpful filter because it
Mhm.
knocks out a
The bad
very
ones.
large amount of people, right?
Yes.
Because what I also think is interesting was that even if I didn't date a particular person, I would watch how they would interact, with people that either had disabilities or that were kind of like, off kilter or whatever. And it was interesting to watch how they would interact with those people, right? Because if they're going to
Yeah.
interact with those people where they don't know them or whatever, then that would instantly tell you information
Everything you
about
needed to
them.
know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so I just feel like I'm like in retrospect I'm like, oh, that filter actually is very helpful.
Yeah.
but but when you're going
Mhm.
through it, right, like when you're like 15, when you're 20, you just want to date people. You're like, it's just another thing to add to
Yeah.
the list of kind of
Well, in
you
some
know.
ways, I feel very lucky because I've had pretty much the same group of friends most of my life.
Okay.
I have some that I've been friends with since we were 2 years old,
Wow.
and some I met as a freshman in high school,
Okay.
and it ranges, in
Yeah, in
there.
between. Yeah.
and it's the same group of people, so they've also grown up with my brother, and they have
Oh, okay.
been wonderful with him from the time we were little kids to even now, like, they
Yeah.
understand the situation, so
Interesting.
when
Okay.
I get an invite, like, say, my friend's having a barbecue or, one of my friends is hosting, a New Year's Day party,
Yeah.
they always include my brother. They always include,
Wow. That's
you know
amazing.
yeah, even my boyfriend's family includes Georgie in what we're doing. My
Yeah.
friends include him, and especially, like, my childhood friends have always included him and treated him like their brother too.
Yeah.
I have a nickname for my brother. I call him I call him Borpy. Ever since I was little, when I first learned to talk, I couldn't say Georgie, and Borpy came out
Uh,
instead, and it just stuck,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
calls me Borpy. I'm gonna throw him right under that bus and tell you that nickname, but I'm not gonna tell you the nickname that my brothers have for me.
Oh, yeah. No, that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think that's
So
a fair trade.
so, even a couple of my friends will call him that nickname because they've been around that
Yeah,
long
they know
that
you well enough, they know hit like that, yeah, like they're
yeah,
consistently showing up, yeah.
yes. And even, my friends' parents are even absolutely wonderful, to my brother and treat him like their friend too.
Yeah.
So in that way, the circle of friends that I have I'm very, very lucky,
Yeah.
my how, like, you have your friends outside of work, and then you have your friends in work that become
Yes.
your friends outside of work.
Yes, yep,
So,
yep.
I've one is I'll call her my teacher bestie. She's even phenomenal with them, like, they joke around and, she's great
Yeah.
with them, but she's also a special ed teacher, so you expect that.
Yeah, there's a certain level of if you're
Yeah.
not like that, then I got concerns.
Yeah. But I have, my other friends that I've been friends with for 30 plus years that are just they always include him, even their spouses who are not new to the game, but new as
Newer
far as
than
how long
they.
I've
Yeah.
known them,
Right, yes.
are
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful with him.
That's
My
so
best friend's
interesting.
husband is phenomenal with him, has done things with him, gone
Yeah.
to sporting events and different things like that, where they're so accepting and so, loving to him when we go out or we go do stuff, you know,
Yeah.
that he's always included. Last year, 2 years ago, I went to Disney. I took Georgie to Disney, and he can't walk anymore long periods, like, he
Okay.
can do short
Which just needs
periods.
a lot of walking, no matter,
Yeah.
like, which way you
Yeah,
go about that.
yeah.
That's a lot of
But
it's a
he can,
lot.
like, walk around where we live,
Yeah, but that
inside the home, but he can't, like, walk up the street. Like, that's
oh,
his
I see.
coordination is, like, way too bad for that.
Okay.
So, I have him in a wheelchair, and my best friend and her husband decided to go at the same time to help me with him.
Oh, that's
Now,
so
granted, they
sweet.
are
That's a
DVC
like,
members,
that's the
which is
best friend ever, like,
yeah,
oh
they
my
are
gosh.
DVC members, but she still
But
didn't ha
still,
her
like,
and
she'd
her
have
husband
to take the
didn't have to
same
do that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
they didn't have
gosh.
to, and they did,
Yeah.
and sometimes, like, I'd be pushing, and I would never, say, "Okay, you take over," or "You do this,"
Yeah. C
where either one of them would be like, "Go, take it, I got this," where my best friend
aw.
knows me, she knows, like, I'll never be like, "Alright, you
Yeah.
do it," I don't wanna
She
do
knows
it.
all the cues and she know yeah, she can read you pretty well
Yeah,
probably, which
where
is
she's like,
good,
"I'm
like,
taking
yeah,
over,"
as best friends
I'll push.
should.
Or if I'm struggling up a hill, she's like, "I got you."
Yeah.
You know? And he loves
Yeah.
them. He loves them.
Yeah.
So, in that way, as far as, like, the circle of friends that I'm around, I'm very, very lucky that they're very supportive and very understanding and very accepting of my brother
Yeah.
and, always have been. Like I said, the ones I've known since we were little kids, like 2, 3 years old to 3rd grade, they've grown up with him, so they don't know any different. If anything, he's taught them a lot too.
Yeah, because it's almost like he's their older brother. Because if they're your friends, right, in school, like, it's
Yeah.
gonna be the same, like, age gap. Yeah, but and I'm sure he also took on the, "I wanna be your brother because 'cause you're in my house," like, type of thing, right? Like, I don't
Yeah,
yeah.
you know? So, in that way, it's really good, but,
Yeah.
it's still tough because, if I reach out for anyone other than, the care providers I already have, it's a really tough thing for someone to come in and be like, take over for me for a night or, a couple
Yeah.
hours, where sometimes it's understandable and I can't hold it against them when they're like, I don't want to do that, you know, or
Yeah.
they're not comfortable with it. It annoys me, but I get it and I can't hold that against them. This isn't their issue to deal with. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Thanks for listening to part 1 of Susan's story. Stay tuned for part 2 coming next week where we talk more about caregivers. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Special Needs Sibling Podcast. If you're new here, please subscribe, rate, and review the show to help more siblings and friends find us. You can also support the podcast by donating on Ko-fi. That's Ko-fi. You can check out the link in the description for more info. If you're a special needs sibling, I hope you feel encouraged and validated in your journey. If you're not a sibling but know someone who is, I hope you learned a little bit more about what their life is like. That's all for now, and until next time, this is the Special Needs Sibling Podcast.